Hey kiddos, so for this week's art project, we are going to be creating a pumpkin still life. So this project will be a lot easier than the project last week. I really hope that you'll enjoy this. Your goals this week. Students will be able to show space by overlapping objects in their art. Students will also be able to show developing skills with shading and creating value. Finally, students will create a still life with at least 3 objects. Some key terms that you're going to need to know. The first one is the word still life. The second is overlapping. What's a still life? A still life is a work of art in which the subject matter is anything that does not move or is dead. And that definition is from the Tate Museum in London. Here's the first example. This is called Still Life with Skull by Paul Cézanne, a very, very famous Impressionist artist. So if we check this out, we see that we have this table. Looks like there's a tablecloth on it, and the objects that we can see include some pears, a peach, an apple, and this very morbid looking skull in the background. Now, Cézanne does some really cool things to make it feel like we're actually looking at maybe objects that could be on a table. The first thing is that he's got objects overlapping, or he's placing some objects in front of others to create the illusion of space. Some objects are also further down the table to make it look like they are closer to the viewers. So if we check this out, we see this really cool tablecloth right here. There's a peach kind of resting on it. It's got this shadow behind it. The skull is the thing that really draws our eye in though, because it stands out against that really dark background. Our eye moves down to the peach over here, and then down to this maybe yellow looking lemon, apple, and then our eye continues to move across the page as we see all these other fruits on this table, and this one almost looks like it's falling off. Another example is another work by Vincent van Gogh. This is called Vase with 12 Sunflowers. We have a vase, and then we've got all these really cool sunflowers up here. We have some that are in front of each other, some that are darker that are behind, but we have that illusion of space again because, again, we can't see the top of the vase. We've got some objects blocking it. We've got some sunflowers that are in front of other sunflowers, so we have that really cool illusion of space happening here as well. Again, overlapping is one way to show space in a work of art. Overlapping occurs when one object is drawn in front of another object. So for your project, we're going to create a still life with at least 2 objects overlapping. You should have 3 objects total, but we want to have at least 2 that are showing overlapping. In this case, we're going to learn how to draw a pumpkin. If you have pumpkins at home already, it could be a good idea to arrange them in front of you and try to draw them. Now let's figure out how to do this step by step. So before we get started, you're going to need a pencil, you're going to need an eraser, and then you're going to need a variety of colored pencils. I recommend using colored pencils if you have them instead of markers, just because it's a lot easier to shade with colored pencils and markers. So I've got a variety of oranges, yellows, a black, I've got one purple color just because I can, and then I've got some greens in case I want to add something to like the pumpkin, like a vine. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we need to draw something for our pumpkins to rest on. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a line across my paper. It doesn't have to be right in the middle or really high. I would make sure that it's maybe somewhere in between like the top middle half and the bottom middle half. So I'm going to put mine right here. And just really carefully sketch a line across your paper. So the goal of this project is to have at least 3 objects and show at least 2 that have overlapping. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to lightly sketch out a circle. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round because most pumpkins are not perfectly round. So maybe it'll be more like a ellipse. And then I'm going to lightly sketch out a second circle. Now this circle I'm going to put slightly in front of my other one, so I can show that overlapping. And then you'd have one more object, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a really small pumpkin down here at the bottom. Okay, so I have my 3 objects. The problem now is I have some lines I need to erase. So my 2 pumpkins over here are overlapping my table. So I need to erase that line that goes through them, so it looks like my pumpkins are resting on the table. Now I have a choice to make. I can either make the pumpkin on the right in front of the pumpkin to the left, Or I can put the pumpkin on the left and front the pumpkin on the right. I just have to decide which line I want to erase. So I actually think I'm going to have this pumpkin be in front. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this other line. Alright, so now I've got the basic shapes of what my pumpkins will be. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a stem at the top of my pumpkin. And then this one I'm going to have kind of off to the side, like it kind of rolled over a little bit, so it isn't perfect. I'm also drawing a small circle on top, like you can see where the stem was cut. My last pumpkin's going to have a really skinny, small stem, and it's going to rest down here at the bottom. Now what I want to do is make this look more like a pumpkin and less like a circle. So, starting at my stem, I'm going to go ahead and draw a curved line out from the front. And then I'm going to go ahead where that stem's at and draw another one. And it's going to round over towards the bottom of my last line I made. Same thing over here. I'm going to start right there where the stem is at. I'm going to round this out and it's going to go just round like that. So I'm going to erase these lines because I don't need them now. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that step on the other side. But my lines now are going to curve the other direction. So I'm going to go ahead, draw that line down rounded. Because most pumpkins aren't perfect circles. Start right there at the stem. Draw a rounded line. And then, same thing right here. I'm going to draw one more. And I'm just going to erase any lines that I don't need. Okay. So, we're going to go ahead, once this focuses, and repeat that step with the pumpkin over here. So starting at the stem, I'm going down and drawing a line. The next line I'm going to draw is going to come out and be a little bit rounded. So see how it curves up there at the top? Erase that line because I don't need it. So same thing right there, starting by the stem, rounded line. From the center right here, we're going to draw another rounded line. I'm going to erase this. I don't really need that. Just want to lightly be able to see where those lines were. I'm going to draw another rounded line. And one more. Just like that. This last little pumpkin, I think I'm going to leave as like a little white pumpkin, but the same thing I did before. Let's make this one like a little short, gordo pumpkin. Like a little fatty pumpkin. So let's go ahead. Let's draw our line. That rounded line where that stem is at. And then starting from that stem, curve that line down. And go ahead and repeat that. Almost reminds me of like drawing teeth. A little rounded line. And then back here you can just draw a couple little bumps so you can't quite see the back of it. Okay. So now I've got my pumpkins all drawn out. Next step is going to be to add color. Typically what I like to do is start lighter and then add the darker colors later. So I'm going to start with like a yellow color. And I'm going to go ahead and lightly go through and start adding my yellow. Really important thing is when you're coloring, always keep with the direction of the shape that you are drawing. So I'm not drawing across like this, I'm not drawing straight up and down. I'm trying to make sure that my coloring is rounded as well. Okay, so I've got the first color down for my pumpkin. Now I'm going to go through and start adding darker shades. If you only have yellow and orange, that's fine. I've got some little in-between shades that I'm going to try blending in here. I go a little bit darker on the edges of my shape so that it kind of masks that pencil line. Also, you want to draw dark towards the bottom, so make things darker, because less light should technically be hitting your object there. So I'm not pressing up that color all the way. I'm letting there be some areas where it's lighter. It's also like a shading technique. So I'm only pressing down until I get closer to that yellow. I don't want to make the entire thing orange. I'm trying to create the illusion of value with this slightly. Alright, so our next step we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of shadow. If you would like to do this, awesome. I think it definitely makes your pumpkins look a little bit more realistic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a black colored pencil. I'm going to lightly go through and start adding some shadows at the base of my pumpkin. So I'm just lightly going through, adding a tiny bit of shadow. I want to give you the gentle reminder that although I'm making this last pumpkin white, you can make your pumpkins any color you want. You could add carvings into them if you would like. I just want to see that you guys are trying to start using shading and that you are showing overlapping. But really, you can be as creative as you like with this project as long as you're doing those two things and showing pumpkins. Don't forget to add some color for your table, for your background, but most importantly, please have fun with this project. Take your time. Don't rush through it. Art should definitely be therapeutic. I hope you guys enjoyed this project this week.